So welcome back guys. So let's talk about Matplotlib's object-oriented approach. In the above plots, we have seen the basic plotting, which is very quick and easy to generate plots. However, it is recommended to use object-oriented approach for more control and customization of our plots. Let's break down and learn the formal introduction of Matplotlib's object-oriented API for plotting the data. The idea behind object-oriented approach is create a figure object and then call methods or attributes from that object. This elegant approach is greatly helpful when we are dealing with a canvas that has multiple plots on it. To start with, let's create a figure instance, say fig1, and add axis on that figure. So the first step is creating figure object, which is an empty canvas. So let's start with creating a figure object, fig1 equal to plt dot figure. So this will create the figure object. The second step is add axis. So let's add axis. Axis equal to, we grab this fig1, call add axis on this fig1, on this object, and pass in the list, which is left, bottom, width and height, 0.1, 0.1, 0.9, 0.9. So 0.1 left, 0.1 bottom, width and height. And the third step is plot the data. Let's put some data on this axis. So axis dot plot, the same command x and y. Let's run this code and see how the things work. So here we have fig1, we added the axis and then we plotted the data. Now we can set the labels, we can set the title, and we can do lots of other things. Let's set the labels and the title. What we do, we grab axis, call set x label for x label and set underscore y label for y label, and the similar way set underscore title to set the title. So x is dot set, we can press tab, and x label, say x is dot set y label, and say y x is dot set title, and we say title. Let's run this cell again and see how the things move on. So here we have x, y and title. So let's revise this thing, what we did in steps. So first thing, we created an object which is an empty canvas, fig1, using plt dot figure. Then we added axis on fig1 using fig1 dot add axis, and passed in a list with left, bottom, width and height. In the next step, we plotted our data. We grabbed axis, called plot on axis and pass in the data. And after that, we again grabbed axis, called set x labels on axis and so on for y labels and for title. So in the beginning, this code is little more and might look complicated. However, the advantage is that we have now a full control of where the plot axes are placed, and we can add easily more than one axis in the figure. Let's learn how to create an inset plot using object-oriented approach. So moving forward, let's add few cells first, and let's create another empty canvas, say fig2 equal to plt dot figure, and the second step is axis. Let's call it axis main because we want inset, so we call it axis main and axis inset. What we did, fig2 and call add axis, and then we pass in a list. Let's pass in the same list point 1, point 1, point 9, point 9. Now we want inset, so axis inset, let's call it axis underscore inset, and fig2 dot add axis and pass in a list. Let's pass in point 3, 0.5, 0.3, 0.4. You can play with these numbers later on. You can change, say 0.3 to 0.4, 0.5 to 0.6, and somehow and see how the things move on. I'm just using these numbers because with these numbers we can put the inset at very reasonable place in the plot. So you can play with these numbers and see how things move on, and how the inset moves by changing this number, and how the main plot moves, and what are the effects on main plot by changing these numbers. So let's move on. Our next step is we want data on the main and we want data on the inset. What we need to do, axis main, let's grab the main one first and call plot on that one, and say we want x and y. Let's put some color on this one as well, so we want the blue color plot in our main. Let's grab the inset now and plot the data. Let's say we want y and x this time, and let's say we want color red here. Let's run this cell. So here we have our main plot and we have our inset. We can set the titles on these plots, on the main one and inset. We can set labels, we can do all kind of things. Let's take the main one first, and axis underscore main, and call set x label, and say this is main x. Copy this one, paste it here, and set this is main y, and change this to y. This is the only change we need here. Let's copy once again and set title and say main title. Let's run this code first. So now we have main title, main y, main x. Let's copy these 3 lines and paste it here, and instead of main, inset here. So we are working with inset now. So this is our inset, inset, and inset. Let's run this code, and here we have. So now we have x main, y main, main title, inset y, inset x, and the data on main and inset. So you see how easy it is to work with these two plots using object-oriented approach. This code is once again little more, but you have more control on the plots both on inset and the main. Once again, if you want to revise what we did, we created an object which was empty canvas, called it fig2, we used plt.figure to create this canvas. We added main and inset axis and passed in the list for their left, bottom, width and height. Then we grabbed axis main and axis inset and plotted data on both canvases. Then we played with the labels and titles for main and for inset. So moving forward, how to create a figure and a set of subplots using object-oriented approach. Matplotlib provides a built-in function subplots. So plt.subplots. If we check the doc string, we can press Shift Tab. We pass in number of rows, number of columns. If we want, we can share x-axis, share y-axis, and a couple of other arguments. So subplots create a figure and set for subplots. This is a very convenient way to create layouts for subplots, including the enclosing figure object in a single cell. Let's start with a very simple example. So what we do, instead of figure now, we need to call subplots. Let's do tuple unpacking to grab fig and axis. So fig axis equal to plt dot subplot. So let's run this cell and see what we have. Here we have. So we have a canvas here. So let's pass in number of columns and number of rows now. So n rows. Let's say we want 2 and n calls equal to 2. Let's run this thing now, and here we have 2 rows and 2 columns. Once again, the numbers are overlapping. We can call plt dot, it's very easy to fix, tight layout, and see, now we don't have these numbers overlapping. So in this case, we are not sharing axes. They all have their individual axes. We can share the axis as well, because by default, if you check share x and share y are false. Let's copy them and paste them here and set them true and true. Let's run this cell here. So now we are sharing x and y axis for all these plots. So here we have y, here we have x, and we don't have anything in between these plots. So let's plot some data now. Once again, let's say fig axis, create a new one, plt dot subplots, and then grab axis dot plot and put some data on x, y. Let's run this thing. So here we have our data along x-axis, and along y-axis we have 0 to 10 and 0 to 100. So we can change the color, say R, red. So we have red color. We can simply set the axis, which is again very simple, axis dot set x label and axis dot set y label, and we can pass in axis dot set title, and we can say title, we can say x here, we can say y here. Let's run this cell. So here we have x, y, and title. Let's create 2 empty canvases. One is fig 1 and one is fig 2 to do some stuff. So what we want, let's add some cells first. Fig 1, axis 1, once again tuple unpacking plt dot subplots, and we pass in 2 and 1, mean this is our n rows and calls. And our second one is fig2, let's say axis 2, and we want 1 and 2. So in the first one we want 2 rows and 1 column. In the second canvas we want 1 row and 2 columns. Let's run this cell. So something went wrong. It should be n rows and n rows. Let's rerun. So here we have from the first one line we have 2 rows, and from the second one we have 2 columns and 1 row. So one more thing I want to mention, axis is an array of axes to plot on. Like this axis 1 is an array of axes, and this axis 2 is also an array of axes. So like axis 1 can be indexed and axis 2 can be indexed. So let's check its type. If we pass type axis 1, and let's check the type of axis 2. So here we have axis 1 is numpy nd array and axis 2 is numpy nd array. We can iterate through this axis as their numpy array, and we can simply use loop. Let's call for loop here. For ax in axis 1, and we want ax dot plot x y, and then we want our figure in the output. So our figure for axis 1 was fig 1. So what we are doing, we are using for loop and iterating over axis 1 and plotting this data and then printing the figure. Let's run this cell. So here we have fig 1, which have 2 axes, axis 1 at 0 index and axis 1 at 1 index, and we get the data on these both of these axes. So we can say x dot set x label as x, and let's copy this one, paste it here, paste it again, set it to y, set it to title, this is y, this is title, and rerun. So it should be EL once again something. So let's rerun. So here we have x, y, and title, x, y, and title. So it's kind of overlapping. Let's call fig 1 dot tide. Notice that this time we don't need to call PLT, we need to call fig because we have already created a figure object here, this one here. So let's run this thing here. Now we don't have any more overlapping. So we can set color here as well, say be blue, and now we have plots in blue color. So instead of loop, we can access these plots one by one as well, like axis 1 index 0, this one, axis 1 index 1, this one. Let's work with the fig 2, and instead of loop, call axis 2 and 0, and we plot the data on that axis, x, y, and let's give it color red and run this cell. We need to fig 2 as well. So here we have. So we have red color data of X and Y on the first canvas in Fig 2. Let's access the second one now. So for this one we need to pass in index 1, and let's say we want Y and X this time, and we want green. Let's run this cell. So here we have red colored on axis to 0 and green on axis to 1. We can set the title and axis to 0, and we can call set X label and say this is X. We can copy this one, copy again, and say we want to set Y label. This one is Y. We can set title, and let's copy all these 3 lines and paste them here and change this to 1. So let's run this cell now. So now we have X, Y, title, X, Y, and we can call Fig title layout as well. So this one is our Fig 2 title layout. So there is no more overlapping. So see how easy it is to customize your plots one by one. You grab one and work with that one. You can change title independently, we can change label and so much more. So what we did, we grabbed first one at index 0, put the data on, set its label, set its title. Then we grabbed at the index 1 and plot the data, put some titles and then axis on that one. And similarly in this one we use loop to put the data and set the title. So we can loop through these axes or we can grab independently. So it looks like the lecture is getting longer now. Let's split it here and see you in the next part of the same lecture. Good luck.